The Last of Us Season 1 Episode 3 has to be the most controversial episode of this whole series. Yes, even more than episode 2 in season 2, because in this episode something was done that a lot of people are very, very upset with. There's a lot of stuff that people are arguing about, and I want to go into it and I want to say how I feel about this episode. First and foremost, this episode has been review bombed from people that are basically homophobic or people that don't like the whole episode being revolved around a gay relationship. And if you are one of those people who are in here right now, please get out of here. We're not gonna talk about the fact that there's a gay relationship. I do not care if it's gay or if it was 2 girls or 2 guys or if it's guy and a girl, I don't care about that. And if you are in here because you didn't like the episode for that, please get away. I don't want you on the channel. Get away. So now into the serious stuff and the stuff that we are actually going to have a little discussion about, because I will for sure say something that someone out there will disagree with, because I do actually think I'm in a little bit of a minority right here. So I would love to have people in the comments say how they feel and what they disagree with me on and what they agree with me on and stuff like that. But, have a civilized conversation, because you will disagree with something I say, almost surely will disagree with something I say. So let's get into it. There's a lot of buzz around the episode being boring, and if you ask me, it's not at all boring. This episode is a beautiful episode, a great episode. Everything down to the setup in the start of Bill, hiding in his basement and, sealing the whole city off and eventually meeting Frank and then becoming something, the whole setup and the whole payoff is beautiful. And this episode standing alone is an absolute banger of an episode, and everything around it is absolutely great. And I do commend and have high gratitude towards the people that did make this episode, because it is a beautiful episode and it truly does make you feel some type of way. I'm not as emotionally invested in the episode as people on IMDb seem to be. Like, some people say they cried their eyes out watching the episode, and I didn't. And I'm a very, very easy to make emotional kind of person. When watching series, I cry at a lot of stuff, and I didn't really do that in this episode, and I cannot really tell you why. Maybe something we'll come into later. But this episode, standalone episode, is a banger. It is a beautiful episode, and I have nothing but good words to say about the episode itself. I think the episode shows that in a world where everything is dead, like either, actually dead or something like that, you're just waiting to die or having nothing to live for, it is a great episode to show that something can grow in what is presumably a dead world, and that is a beautiful thing. And it also shows like the human side, like the human, that we are both strong and weak and stuff like that. I really do like the episode for that. And going over to my next point is, there's also a lot of people saying that this episode is a filler. And by absolute definition, yes, this episode is a filler. And before you dislike the video, I'm not trying to go against anything, but looking at the episode, looking at the game, this is a game adaptation, and that's what we're gonna get into when I'm gonna tell you how I feel about it. This is a game adaptation, and as a episode in this series, this is a filler episode. The plot doesn't barely move in this episode at all. We are just getting a backstory, beautiful one at that, of Bill and Frank, and you rarely see Ellie or Joel in this episode, and it's only at the last part of the episode where stuff is actually moving, like, they get the car and all that stuff is happening. But in the whole episode, it is just filler. And before you dislike, I don't find the episode boring, but it is filler and doesn't really move the plot. It doesn't really give us stuff like that. So I do think that you cannot really argue against it. Like, even if you like the episode, which I did, it is still a filler episode. And yes, I do like the episode, but now is where I'm gonna piss some of you off. But I would, as said, rather have a civil discussion in the comments than you just disliking and leaving. So please, bear with me here. I am a massive lover of the game. I actually got into the game very late. Like, I've watched a ton of playthrough on it when it got out and just throughout the years, but I didn't play it myself before I actually got a lot older. And I'm a massive lover for the game, and I'm gonna make a whole video on the whole season when I'm done with it. But so I'm not gonna get too much into it, but I feel like this episode sadly took a big chunk of what I was looking forward to from the game. And what I'm going to say is the first 2 episodes was so good, and I'm going to talk about this in the big episode, was so good because it took so many things from the game and just put them straight into the show. And that's what a lot of people that watch the show will like to see, I think. Like, a lot of people that watch the show is people that played the game or like the game and would like to see that in the show as well. So what I find nice about the show is I can talk to my parents about the game now because they've watched the show. But then what I don't like is I can't do that now with Bill, because in the show he's all of a sudden a whole different character. And yes, he's still an extremist who who is ready for this whole thing, this whole apocalypse thing. But everything else about him is just not the same as it is in the game. And I'm sorry for this, but I'm sad about that. I would rather have the game, what is in the game, be in the show, and that is just how I feel, and how I feel a lot while watching the show. Every time I see an episode of this show, the thing that makes me the happiest is when something is happening exactly how it did in the game. And I know you cannot make a show exactly how it was in the game, that just doesn't work, but when something is happening in the show that is like almost 1-to-1 with the game, like my heart just, that's what hits me. Like I love that stuff. And yeah, I feel like a lot of iconic moments were taken away from us. The whole Joel hanging upside down shooting zombies while Ellie's trying to set him free, going to the school to get a car battery or get the car, and also the first time seeing a bloater and stuff like that is just things that are taken away from us. And also the iconic scenes between Ellie and Bill is just stripped away from us. Like, people that has never played the game will never know that side of Ellie and Bill's relationship. I think it's become a little bit too normal to say that the Bill part of the game, so the little segment where you are with Bill in the game, is not that important, but I think it's such a lie, and I'm gonna try to explain why it's a lie. But that's because in the game, at this point, Ellie is still cargo to Joel, and that has not changed. Of course, they are like progressively evolving to be more of this father-daughter thing, but at this time in the story, in the game, Ellie is still cargo to Joel. But when they meet Bill, Joel is really actually starting to stick up for Ellie against Bill, because Ellie and Bill does not see eye to eye, seeing that Bill is this extremist in surviving, and Ellie is basically out like in the world for the first time and like a whole other person. And I think both Joel and Bill in the game learn a lot of this little interaction where Joel is like, of course Joel is not the extremist that Bill is, but he's probably more on that side of the coin in some way. And as said, in this episode in the game, in this part of the game, Joel actually starts sticking up a lot for Ellie against Bill, which in the grand scheme of things does not really make sense for Joel to do, because Ellie does not have a choice but to stick with Joel. And Joel would probably be better for Joel to be friends with Bill for a long time, because they of course have a little market going on, they're trading stuff and stuff like that. It doesn't really make sense for Joel to stick up for Ellie. In the game, you can only ask yourself, why does he stick up for her? And that's because in that moment, I think that's like where they really start to warm up to each other. Also, Ellie in this time period is stealing, of course, some of Bill's stuff, which is the magazine and the player with the music on and stuff like that. And that is basically to try and, make Joel laugh or get some reaction out of Joel at this point. And it's just such a big part of the game, in my opinion. Like, I like the place where you are with Bill, and I think it's become a little bit too normalized to say that is not important. But I think a big thing with this is, back when this game was made, I already think there was a reason for every single thing in the game to happen story-wise, and everything, and this is so important, everything always revolved around Ellie and Joel. Whether we met with Bill or Tess or whatever, it was always about Ellie and Joel and how they would evolve over time to grow to like each other. And this episode is no different, and that's why I maybe don't like this episode as a part of the Last of Us series as much. If this was a standalone almost movie, this would be like a 9 out of 10 movie or 8 out of 10 or something like that. It was a great episode. But as the Last of Us series episode, I do not like it because they changed way too much for my liking of Bill and stuff, and we still get the iconic scenes with the whole magazine stuff, but it just doesn't really give the same vibe and give the same stuff. So if I was to sum up what I feel, this episode is an absolute bang of an episode, and my friend who has never played the game himself absolutely loved this episode and actually said that he wants to go back and just watch this episode by itself. And I actually think that says a lot about this episode, and that just says that this episode is actually a fucking bang of an episode on itself, but it should not be in the Last of Us season as a whole. And I'm sorry, please don't dislike the video just for that. I'm really trying, but I'm a way too big fan of the game, and actually also just the part with Bill in the game I do really love. I felt like that was kind of taken away from not even me, but the people that has not played the game that are getting into the story from this show. Like my friend, I don't know if he's ever watched a playthrough of the game in depth and seen the whole thing with Bill, but he will never get the Bill from the game. And I know a lot of people will then say, oh, but the Bill stuff in the game is not important. But as I just said, I think it's very important. Was it boring? No. Was it filler? Yes. Is it a great episode, beautiful episode? Yes. Is it something I would like to have in the Last of Us show? No. I would have loved for it to be how it is, and I always will that. So when I eventually make a video on the whole season, you can probably be sure that that is how I will feel about the whole thing. So if you already know that something will change bigger down the line, you already know that I'm probably not gonna like it. But I hope, even though you may disagree with me, that you can maybe leave a like on the video and then say in the comments what you disagree with, and I'm more than happy to hear it, because yeah, I'm all up for that. And either way, thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye.